Well, hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever in the world you are in today. Jason and I were talking about how it is Friday morning. It is 8 a.m. for us in the Pacific time zone. But I know that we have listeners from Europe, Africa, Asia. And so, it is really interesting to see how technology is helping us connect through time zones, different regions, different countries. So it's amazing. And it's a privilege once again to have you with us. And
Enrique,
please,
thank you so much for having me. And
absolutely.
before I get started, just thank you to all of those in HR who are doing yeoman's work to make sure that we survive these crazy times. So thank you to everyone for doing that.
Thank you, Jason. And you have been, and we're going to get into the conversation about, your advocacy for, self-care, but also thinking about the now of work and what HR could be doing, to get the ball rolling about the preparation, not just for the things that we thought were going to happen in the future, but the things that are happening right now. Before getting there, once again, I want to welcome everybody. Please, please, please let us know where you are connecting from. I One thing that I always say almost always at the beginning of my interview series on LinkedIn Live is that the reason why I do this on LinkedIn Live is because it is just so easy to connect with anybody. You literally, if you see somebody posting something interesting, you are just 2 clicks away from connecting with them. One click on their name and the other click on the connect button. So very, very seamless process. Do you ever envision something like this, Jason? Like this seamless process to connect with people from all over the world?
Oh, I mean, I didn't envision it, but it's reality, and it's been amazing to watch you use a tool like this to be able to do that. Because to be honest with you, really, I mean, this is the now of work. This is the now of work, and the thing that's going to break over time, and every HR leader needs to unlearn this. Is what you're doing is you're taking people from all these different companies, and whether they be contractors, whether they be full-time employees, whatever they are, and bring them together and allowing them to connect.
Yeah.
If you think about what we have within companies, we've got these walls, and these walls don't let us connect with people from the outside. They don't let us share skills from the outside. So, what you're doing is, I mean, you've created the now of work already. And I truly think a lot of companies are in the next 6 months, to be honest with you, are going to be learning from what you're doing here and bringing the same tools to life.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And, one of the things, and I know you're very big on this as well, is building community. And I think the underlying idea of why we think community is important is because we know that we have challenges that are common to all of us, but also we know that the problems that we're dealing with in the world right now are extremely complex for anybody individually, whether it is a country or a company or a person, to solve alone. And I know you're big on community. You have the Slack community that you have been fostering, and people are sharing a lot of ideas and content in there. But in how do you see the evolution of these global communities getting together now with online tools? What do you think their importance is going forward, as we will need more of each other's potential ideas, talents to resolve these complex problems that we're dealing with right now?
Yeah. So Enrique, so first of all, look, we have 50 some people on the line here, and I see no one. I don't see any comments. Do you see any comments?
I do. Well, they are commenting on where they are coming from. Let me tell you where they're coming from. They are from LA, another Pacific time, Gainesville, Florida, Germany, Montreal, Natick, if that's the way it said, Natick or Natick in Massachusetts, Chicago, Minneapolis, Chile, Miami, Oklahoma, Santa Cruz, California, Minneapolis, New York, somebody
Great.
else from Hermosa Beach, Houston. Everybody
Awesome.
else
So
will tell us where you're connected
I'm
from.
just not seeing the comments, which is good. So I'm glad that people are interacting. So what I was going to say is the thing that we need to do as thinking about building communities is we need to focus on interaction, and we need to think about interaction and connection. And the reason, Enrique, that I've been so focused on building communities is we're writing a book together as we speak. Every single day we wake up, we're writing a book. And guess what? There's not one consultant, not one software vendor, not one HR practitioner, not one HR leader, not one business leader in the world who knows this book, who knows what the next page of this book is. The only way that we in HR and we in this industry actually write this book together is collaboratively.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to happen otherwise. And if we don't write it collaboratively, what happens is we're going to keep doing the same stuff, that we've been doing forever. So we have to write this book together. And the only way to write this book together is to create those multi-channel, connections that allow us to learn from others around the world. Because I have, as I was talking to you, we have customers all over the world, and I feel like I'm on the phone or a Zoom or whatever 24/7 now, because it's Europe, it's Asia, it's US, and their mindsets are different. Mindset is the key to driving where this is going, into writing the book. Mindset's the key, and it's a mindset collective that's needed in order for us to create what this new now of work looks like, Enrique.
I love that you say that for many reasons, but let me tell you one of them. You are a futurist. You analyze trends, and you sort of describe possible scenarios. And it's great to hear from you that we are writing this book together, because there are many unknowns right now about what the future will look like. And when we say the future, we're talking about tomorrow. We're not even talking about 5 years from now. We're just talking about tomorrow now. So that kind of, I'm going to say a little bit of vulnerability and candor from experts like you is fundamental now, because we're all in this together, and we're all figuring out together, writing the next page every day. And I love that you say that, because it's a way to encourage people to be okay with the fact that there are many unknowns, and we are uncovering them as we go, learning as we go.
Yeah, Enrique, this is not a tops-down thing. Period. End of story. It's not a tops-down thing. It's a pool. We're all in this pool together. And there are ideas that people invent and birth every single day that we all should be using as we create what's next. One of the things that drives me most crazy, Enrique, is, and you've probably seen me do videos of this, and for those of you that aren't connected with me on LinkedIn, please connect, because I do put out a ton of content on this, is when people ask me when we're returning to normal. And I mean, honestly, I have to be careful not to swear today. It drives me crazy. Because let's not, we've been talking about for 50 some years or more, not to have HR return to normal. And then the minute that we get an opportunity to change it, the first thing we say is, when are we going to return to normal?
Yeah.
Don't ask the question. Stop talking about that. When do we get a chance to create the new world? And right now. So don't say, when are things returning to normal? The answer is, now we're creating what the future of the function is, and what the future of work is, and the now of work is. And stop asking when we're going back to normal, because we're not going back to normal. Yeah. And if we go back to normal, all of us are going to say, we just missed the biggest opportunity in our life.
Yes. And all the suffering and all the pain that we're seeing in the world right now would have been in vain if we end this crisis by going back to what we had before, which was not working for everybody. And we already, agree on that. For everybody who's connected on the call, on the LinkedIn Live, thank you so much for being here. I see people, Jason, from even Argentina, Nigeria, Dominican Republic, everywhere. Right. Please connect with Jason Averbook, CEO and co-founder of Leapgen, and please ask your questions on the chat if you have any questions. Jason, I want to ask you this. This may be a little bit of a harder question. I think we were on a similar boat, 4 or 5 months ago, talking about a future that we thought was going to happen, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. And a lot of things have been accelerated. One of them being this massive sort of send off people to work from home. I don't think anybody envisioned that this was going to happen in 2 weeks. I think people sort of thought about it. This is going to happen, over time. What do you think are some of the things that we got right before this crisis started? And what do you think are some of the things that we may not have been that accurate, if you will, when describing the potential futures that we were creating?
So, Enrique, we've been talking forever about how do we give employees the opportunity to work in ways that bring the best out of them wherever they are. Let's just say that. I'm not going to say work from home, and I'm not going to say work remotely, because to be honest with you, I'm really sick of that. I'm going to say work in a way that allows people to bring the most of themselves to work based on their job. So if they need to be in a manufacturing plant, totally get it. What do we do as HR to help them bring the most of themselves to their job? If they don't need to be in an office, what do we do to help them bring the most of themselves to the job, whatever that is? But we've been talking about this concept of remote work for a long time, and we've been using a peanut butter spread to do it. Like, oh, sorry, we can't do it this year because not everyone can work remote. Sorry, can't do it this year because we don't have the technology. And what we have to do, and what this has made us do, is, we had this bar out here somewhere, which was the future of work. And we were over here. So I always say, Enrique, it was 2020 outside of work. Inside of work, what year was it? In a lot of organizations, it was like the year 2000. I was getting a lot of stuff done on my device that I wasn't able to get done at work. Because guess what? I would go talk to someone. But guess what? Bang. Sorry to do that in your ear. Now, all of a sudden, I end up with this. It's 2020 outside of work, and it's 2020 inside of work. Because guess where I'm working? I'm working outside of work. This pandemic, which shut down 7 billion people all at the same time for the first time ever. And I just pause because it's a really, really important point.
It is.
Never has it happened. Never will it probably happen again. Okay, which means we all get to start on the same footing. Okay, we're all at the same point in the race. I know you're an ultra marathon racer, and when you had a 10-mile lead on me, I'd be like, dude, I'm never gonna catch you. Guess what? We all stopped at the same time, and that doesn't usually happen. But the fact that it did, it allows us to think now together about how do we create this now of work. So some of those things: work from home, work from wherever. Another thing. How do I make sure that my digital workplace is as solid as my physical workplace? Solid meaning, hey, people can feel just as good working from wherever as they did before. And then the last thing, just real quickly, Enrique, how do I make sure my managers and leaders know how to connect and listen to my people wherever they are? So it's not at the water cooler, it's not at the urinal, it's not in the bathroom, whatever. It's actually over a communication tool like this, where, hey, one of the things I'm doing is I'm leaving my Zoom room open all day. Why? So people can just pop in. Because guess what? If I had an office, people would just pop in.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. A new way of thinking that's really important that people need to bring into their workforces for leaders.
I love that. And, you've been talking for a long time, and of course, with more power this past few weeks, about how we have to change our mindset to, take it, see the gifts of the crisis as an opportunity to do better and create something better for the future. And I think one of those things is perhaps to me, the most important thing, which is not something new, and it is about becoming more human. It is funny how we have lost our humanity. I'm just thinking back about the things that we have accepted as tolerable, like, for example, people losing their jobs and then losing their healthcare. I think that is intolerable in my mind, and we just accepted it as something normal, at least in our American society. Other countries work differently, but we, globally, we also accepted, sometimes even silently, having people overworked, overstressed, frustrated, depressed, suffering from anxiety. So we have accepted all these things like the normalcy that, characterized the world just 4 or 5 weeks ago. So to me, this idea of mindset is super important, but especially, the foundation block of that, which is how do we become more humans through this crisis? How, you said it before, listening more to people, empathetically, being there for them. So that to me is a critical piece of all these conversations that we're having. And I want to ask you, as we become more humans, and I'm hoping that is happening, not just because it has to happen, but it's happening intentionally in the workplace as well. As we become more human, what do you think the role of leadership will be going forward?
Yeah.
Like,
So
let me ask you, let me add this question in there. If you, in 5 years from now, if you were to look back and say, these guys were the successful leaders during that crisis and after the crisis, what would their characteristics be?
yeah. So Enrique, I want to go back. I want to start with mindset. And first of all, it's really important to understand that being human is part of an organization's mindset. Okay. One might think, and I'm going to be really, this is going to be a little bit of a bold statement. One might think that every manager and leader should act human. But one of the things that's important is that if the culture of the company, if the mindset, if the value proposition, if the goals and the values of the company don't support that, capitalism takes over and people drive money, profit, shareholder value, and things like that over humanity. And it's a really important thing to understand. We cannot just say, here, if we say that COVID-19 is going to make every manager and leader more human, that's not going to work. It has to be deeper than that. We have to hit the company values. We have to hit the employee value proposition. I mean, we have the word, I mean, Leapgen, L-E-A-P. The L in Leapgen stands for love. Okay? You know, why does it stand for love? A great friend named Steve Farber who wrote a book, Love is Just Damn Good Business. Now, you know, because love is part of our value proposition, people feel like it's okay to express love. But if love isn't part of your value proposition, as managers and leaders, the minute this thing comes back, whatever it looks like, I'm going to go back to the way I was.
Yeah.
So I just want to reinforce something you said, that it's more, we have to act intentionally.
Yeah.
We have to act intentionally and make sure that humanity is built into the values and the value proposition of what we do, A, and B, that we were running, Enrique, on a path that was so fast that it was dizzying, tizzying, and it was just a trance. You're like, go, 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 go. Profit, 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 stock price, stock price, stock price, higher, 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 grow, grow, grow. You know, I mean, we forgot how to be humans. Because, I mean, people always say, hey, a robot's going to take over. Well, guess what? We were robots. We were robots. We weren't acting like humans.
Yeah. So
in the now of work, you know, all of a sudden what we realize is, hey, I need to act differently. And this, I mean, I'm going to build habits, Enrique. We're building habits as we speak. And there's a part of me, and I hope no one holds this against me, the longer this goes on, the more human we're going to be, and the better chance that HR is going to come out on the other end looking different than it did before. If this just took a day, we would have not made any progress.
Yeah.
So I say this is the time to step on the accelerator of humanity. It's time to step on the accelerator of digital. And it's time to step on the accelerator of how do we focus on the things that we really want to be great at versus the things that really don't matter anymore.
So let me ask you the question then. I want to ask a couple of questions. What are the things you think are going to make us great after this crisis or during the crisis, but especially once we get out of this mess or this tragedy in which we are all living through?
So embedding humanity. So stop. So for example, stop talking about processes, start talking about journeys. Employees go through journeys. Employees don't think about processes. Okay, processes are dumb, data-driven things. They're important, but they're pieces of technology. Stop calling employees users. They're humans. Okay, they're humans. Start to think about the language that people speak. You know, we've gone from a world of B2B to B2C, and B2C has done really well. What we haven't done is we haven't gone to the world of B2Me, which is the business talking to me.
Yeah.
And B2Me is what's going to make or break going forward how people feel working at the organization. So, you know, doing that, getting rid of once a year performance reviews. Sorry.
Please.
No, I mean,
I pray for that to happen.
No one likes them. Why am I doing them?
I know.
Getting rid of once a year engagement surveys. No one likes them. Why am I doing them? Getting the pulse of my people, the green, yellow, red, on a daily or weekly basis to be able to help drive change. So you say, what's going to change? Yeah, a lot's going to change if we intentionally start making the changes now.
Yeah.
You know, what, one more thing I'll say that's going to change is there are organizations right now that are getting digitally crushed. They've got intranets that look like link farms. They've got processes that and journeys that don't connect. They've got employees that can't find information. And what they do, people call and they can't get through. So we're going to move from a digital crush to a digital rush. And on the other side of this digital rush is what's actually organizations are going to start to do. And they're going to say, wow, it doesn't make sense to make sure my payroll process is better, but it makes sense to understand that I have a listening device, not listening device, don't call it the police, but a listening capability to make sure that my employees are feeling good, that my employees feel good about their job and they're bringing their best to work. If I do that, that embeds humanity and it makes me a better leader.
Yeah.
Okay. But it requires us to deliver the capabilities and not label them HR. This is work. We are driving the now of work. We're not driving the now of HR. We're driving the now of work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you know, I love the, you know, the contradictions between processes and journeys and employees and humans. Love that. You know, one thing that I think humanity has gone through a very rapid period of cultural evolution. And I'm going to say particularly since the invention of the iPhone, you know, 12, 13 years ago, we changed. And now we are demanding way more of our workplaces because we're getting those things from some service providers. Let me give you one example of that. You just mentioned about performance management, right? Which in many companies continues to be an annual process, rating based, you know, which doesn't work for, you know, for everybody or for anybody. But you have the same user or the same person or the same human that is being part of that process. They're also, you know, getting services from another company, which is delivering, you know, something to them in seconds. So their expectation is, if this company is providing me this kind of service, why can I get the same thing from my employer? Why are they so, you know, old school? Why all these things are so obsolete and whatnot? So my question is, you know, I think we're also going through a lot of cultural evolution through this crisis. What do you think will be the demands from the employees or humans bottom up going forward out of the evolution that we've gone through during this crisis?
Enrique, they were already there, but they're just going to be amplified. So the ability to get stuff done, the ability to allow me to focus on the role that you hired me to do, the ability to feel like I'm human, you know, in the organization, and that I have a support system to be human. You know, the ability from a digital standpoint to be able to interact with the organization whenever, wherever, however that I am. You know, if we think about this, let's go back to B2C. Why did B2C change? Why business to consumer changed was that people were able to unlearn. They were able to unlearn and to adapt. Okay. By the way, these are the two biggest skill sets I think that the HR function needs right now: adaptability and unlearning. There's a great new book by Heather McGowan that talks about this.
I'm inviting her next week to our program.
Yeah, it's great. And I'm doing a podcast with her, you know.
Also, fantastic.
But that concept of adaptability and unlearning, that's how B2C became. That's how Amazon thought different. You know, look at the retailers and look at the restaurant organizations in the world today, hospitality organizations, which ones are still alive and which ones are dead. It was because they were able to adapt and unlearn. The same thing's going to happen with companies. If companies rethink the value prop and the role of work within their organizations, and they unlearn how they were doing things in the past and relearn and adapt, they're going to come out ahead. You know, and that involves listening. That involves designing for the empty chair, which is the employee and the manager and the leader. It's not designing for me in HR, and it's making sure that the data that I put out actually is able to be used to become better. It's not me being better as an HR function, it's the business
Yeah.
It's the organization being better. So just a few thoughts there, but I mean, that's going to be that's table stakes, Enrique, going forward. And for a lot of people, they're like, oh my gosh, we're so far away from that. You might be far away from it, but guess what? Because everything stopped, we're all on equal footing.
Yeah.
So you step on the accelerator over this weekend, while everyone else is sitting back waiting for things to get to the next normal. You're going to find yourself way ahead.
I love that. And I want to go back to something you said before about people wanting to come to work. I don't know if you've ever read the book From Good to Great by Jim Collins. And I remember clearly one of the things he said in the book is, great leaders don't need to motivate people. People are already motivated. What they need to do is not demotivate them by adding waste, crap in the middle of their journeys at work. But instead removing those obstacles, supporting them, challenging them. And I think going forward is going to be very important because, people will want to feel this connection with work again, and they will want to, give all their, their value, their talents, their potential. And, my hope and my expectation is that we really redefine, our business models and the way we operate talent in an organization so that people don't have to come again to deal with the same obstacles that they were dealing with before. One of them being, of course, leadership.
So, Enrique, there's a massive opportunity. And I'm just going to share something that's very easy, yet I have not seen it done yet. Just in the United States alone, we have, as you know, 26 million people that have lost their jobs in 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Like massive, like who's ever heard of such?
Yeah.
We've lost 13 years of job growth in 5 weeks. So guess what? Every single organization in the world should be focusing on their employee value proposition right now. Every single CEO should be recording a video right now that goes on their career site and on their homepage that says, hey, we were running fast, but guess what? This has taught us a lesson. And as we hire back, here are the things that are going to be part of our core values going forward. That is such a massive opportunity because guess what? Everyone's watching. And as this talent comes back to work right now, it might feel hopeless, but in a short period of time, people are going to have a choice again of where they go back to work.
Yeah.
And if I'm looking for a job and I go to someone's career site and it says careers and I don't want a career, all I want is a job, and I have a hard time applying for the job, or I can't figure out what the company stands for, I'm going somewhere else. So like right now, the time where hiring freeze is on, like what a brilliant opportunity. Because there's no question that people are going to work again. We've worked forever. Is it going to look the same, smell the same, taste the same? No, but people have worked forever. So what a brilliant time to reframe the conversation and say, we're here for you. And wow, we're going to need you. And guess what? Our manifesto or our pledge to you is if you come work here, we're going to take what we've learned during this and bring it to life in our managers and leaders. If I'm an applicant or a candidate, I'm like, whoa, like powerful stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to connect that with a conversation that I had yesterday as part of the interview series, which is how unprepared our business models were for something like this. And I'm not talking about the Amazons or the Facebooks of the world and even Walmart now, doing a hiring like 100,000 people. I am talking about the overwhelming majority of the companies that, were caught off guard by something like this. So in this transformation process that you're talking about, focusing on the value proposition and then transforming everything else accordingly, what do you see will be the main changes in the business models that we have in place right now, not only to operate effectively and successfully going forward, but also to be prepared for crisis, because those things can be in contradiction sometimes.
Yeah, Enrique, we have to stop pyramiding an organization.
Yes.
We have to start creating the nuclear organization, which means I have cross-functional teams of people holding the various parts of the organization together and driving accountability and governance. versus having a tops-down approach. Because what's happened, like the reason I made that face when you said we were not prepared is because basically what happened, and anyone who studies work would have predicted this.
Yeah.
I predicted this a couple of years ago. I didn't know it was going to be a pandemic that did it, but I predicted that this was going to happen. Is if you pull out a Jenga block, what happens? The whole thing falls down.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened here. We've pulled out a block and the whole thing's toppled over.
Yeah.
Okay. Truly, the economy's toppled over as I've pulled out a block. Okay. So when we start to think about what does it mean as we have the opportunity to rebuild, it's how do we not build top down like we know it? How do we unlearn that model? How do we start to build cross-functional teams who truly, truly think about the concept of employee value prop along with how we're going to deal with customers? And guess what? Wow, maybe they should be the same. Sorry, didn't mean to get so passionate there, but maybe the way we should treat our customers should be the same as we treat our employees. Like, imagine that. Maybe the journeys I build for my customers, I should learn from and use those to build for my employees, since, most of my customers are employees and vice versa. So let's just break those silos of, okay, here's outside world, here's inside world, here's finance, here's IT, here's HR. Like, no one cares. Like, it's models that
should be a seamless process. Should be a seamless journey
that we put in place to make sure we can have reporting structures.
Yeah.
But that mattered in the past because we had no way to connect otherwise. We had no way to connect these teams together. But look, we're connecting teams every day together. So guess what? Those barriers are gone. We're global, we're cross-functional, we're nuclear, we're cross-company. Yeah. We're cross-company. So, don't go back to that old house of cards that we pull out one thing and the whole thing crumbles.
What's painful is that a lot of these things, like you said before, they were said years ago. You're not talking about this for the first time ever today. You've been talking about this for a long time, and there are other people who have been talking about it for a long time as well. Just take the example of purpose at work, which is a concept that probably has been around for maybe 50, 60 years now. And it was only last year that the Business Roundtable got together and said, oh, you know what? Now we know that purpose is important, and probably more important than just focusing on profit in the workplace.
But and Ricky, if I start to interrupt, but this stuff's hard. Changing a business model is hard. Changing humans is hard.
Yeah.
And every time I get into a conversation, into a conversation where change comes up, what do? 90% of the people will throw up a reason why we shouldn't change.
Yeah.
10% will say, oh, that's a good idea. So what do? I usually don't, because it's more work, it's much more difficult, and it's harder on humans to deal with change.
Yeah.
So I get why nothing happened. I get why things didn't move as fast as we may have said that they should. But guess what? Now we have the perfect opportunity. So now the excuses are gone. That's all I'm trying to say. I don't want to look back and say we've been saying this forever. I know that we have, but and it's not been forever, but we've been saying this. I don't want to talk about that. What I do want to talk about is the excuses are gone, and there is no excuse now, zero excuse, not to be able to get a leadership team together and say, we're going to reframe, we're going to unlearn, we're going to adapt, and we're going to build what we want it to be the whole time.
Love that. And I want to dig a little deeper into that question and connect it to a possible playbook to do that. So if you were to design, put together the ingredients and the preparation for this, new recipe that we're putting together for organizations, what that list could look like and what the preparation should be looking like. How do we go about it?
So the first thing I need to ask myself is what matters most right now? Okay. What matters most right now? What can I as a people function do that matters most right now? and tie that to what matters most right now as a company. Because while I think it's important to build the future, we're still in the middle of a huge problem. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I can't take my eye off the problem and just say, hey, guess what? I'm going to go into my lab and for the next 5 years or 2 years or 1 year, build the future. So I need to be very agile and say, okay, at the same time that I'm saying what matters right now to the employees, to the leaders, to the people function, and to the business as a whole, at the same time, I'm saying, what can I rid myself of? Parallel. I'll say it again, parallel, not separate, parallel, that I can rid myself of that doesn't make sense anymore. That just doesn't make sense anymore to do engagement surveys once a year. It doesn't make sense to do performance reviews once a year anymore. This stuff just doesn't make sense. So let's just stop right now and focus on the things that matter most right now. And guess what? More than likely, the things that matter most right now are going to continue to matter most going forward. Now, guess what? Don't laugh at this, but if there's a rallying cry that says, oh my God, we have to bring back the old school performance review. And all of a sudden we've got hashtag bring it back. Guess what? We can bring the dumb thing back. You know what I mean? Like it would be very easy to just dust it off and bring the dumb thing back.
Hopefully not.
Yeah. If hashtag bring it back starts trending, Enrique, you and I will bring it back together. But that's not going to happen. Let's think about how can we rid ourselves of the things that don't work now and innovate towards what we're going to need going into the future. And whether there are doubters out there who think everything's going to go back to the way that it was, which fine, whatever. No matter what, and we talked about this before we went live. I have a 15-year-old boy and a 12-year-old boy. They have no idea why people at work do the things they do. No, zero idea. And when they enter the workforce, which they're going to in the next 5 to 10 years, they don't learn through a teacher standing in the front of the classroom. That's not how they want to learn a skill. They're not looking for a career. They're looking for a job.
Yeah.
And they don't care if they work for 5 companies at the same time. And they're not looking for one company to say, none of them say, oh, I can't wait to work for ABC and work there forever.
Yeah.
It's not even part of their vocabulary.
Nope.
So let's get rid of all that stuff because that's not how people want to work. And there are some HR purists who are going to be like, you're talking sacrilege. We can't do that. You're breaking the way things have been done for 100 years. There's a great movie, Moneyball, I'm sure you've seen, which says, wow, you're going to change the way recruiting's done over the last 100 years. For those of you that watched the NFL draft or anything about it last night, you saw all drafting was done based on data and analytics with a little bit of gut. Okay? We're moving into that kind of a world with talent that we need to bring into the workplace.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating, Jason. And I think one of the worst things that we could do right now is, ignore the data and continue thinking that, because we've done the things in one way, those things will continue to work, going forward. It was very recently, I think there was a research put together showing, the lack of trust in HR. And, I work in HR right now, with Hacking HR. I was a practitioner before. And when you see that 50-80% of the people do not trust HR, that is heartbreaking, I gotta say. That is very, very painful to see. But to me, the place to begin is not to say that it's not true, because I do my best, and my best should be the best for everybody else. To me, the best place to start this conversation is to say, what if that's true? What am I doing wrong that I got to do differently? Is it the performance management? Well, then we got to redefine it. Is it doing engagements just once a year, or, climate surveys, every 5 years, which, my previous workplace did, and they were very proud of doing something every 5 years, which, was ridiculous. So to me, this conversation is also a wake-up call for HR leaders and leaders in general to say, sometimes the data you're going to see will contradict what you think, what you believe, but your mindset should be, what if that's true? And what should I do differently, to change it, to change
Yeah.
how things are?
Yeah. Enrique, I just want to add one more thing about your playbook question, if I could.
But please go ahead.
You need to create your playbook. So there are surveys, there's junk coming out from everywhere right now. And, it's very, 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 very important that you create your own now of work. Okay? Because what's going to work for your company based on culture, based on where it's been, based on where that industry is going, based on your geography, based on where your people are, it's going to be different. And this is not a one model HR world. Okay? There isn't a playbook that everyone should follow the same playbook. The playbook needs to be agile. The playbook needs to be personalized. The playbook needs to be focused. Those are the attributes of the playbook. But what the plays that you run have to be truly unique to your organization based on what it is that your organization's trying to do right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just want to make that clear, because
that's fantastic. Yeah.
We in HR, we all flock together. So, hey, if Enrique is doing this, then I have to do this, then I have to do this, then I have to do this. And we're all in a different spot right now. So we have to look at what our now is and what our next is and say, we're going to create our OUR now of work, not get it out of a playbook, because the book is still being written.
Yeah. Let me ask you, as we wrap up this conversation, I want to ask you two last questions. I mean, I know you're going to go back to the LinkedIn Live because there's a lot of stuff going on in there, and part of your team is connected as well. But I want to ask you a couple of questions. One of them is, the question about the playbook, and these best practices that, have been around, the concept have been around for such a long time. How do you inspire, or what do you tell HR leaders to stop flocking together and just do what makes sense for them, even if it doesn't make sense for some other company that they are considering their role model? So that is one question. And the other question is, you talked about the attributes of the playbook. If we can talk about common, capabilities that we need to embrace, either as individuals or organizations, to survive through this situation, but also to thrive in the future, what those capabilities could look like.
Yeah, awesome. So first of all, the first question, how do you get people to not just take best practice and do it and flock together? There's one word, it's alignment. Okay, I have to take my business or organizational objectives, move one step down, which are then my people and HR objectives, and make sure that they're aligned. Okay, so if my business says I'm going to increase profit by 5%, guess what? Everything that I should be doing in the people function should be what? Yeah. Focused on increasing profit by 5%. If I say my goal as a company is to drive net promoter score, guess what I should be doing as a people function? Focusing on net promoter score. So this concept of the measurements that we use, they're all fine. I mean, HR analytics and measuring HR, I laugh at them all the time. I mean, truly, because it's me looking at myself in the mirror. It's how am I doing as a function, which is important. I'm not saying it's not important, but what's more important is how am I impacting the business objective. So the way that we don't just all flock and do the exact same thing is make sure that we understand what our business objectives are and put in place tools and shepherd those tools and journeys and capabilities to make sure that we're aligned with those objectives. Fantastic. Okay, none of them are the same. Like and by the way, one of the things that drives me crazy is, hey, if you're competing for talent, Enrique, and you're going to do the exact same thing as the person across the street from you, that's stupid. Yeah. Like we're in a war now. We're in a war for people. Like we're battling against each other. Why would we want to be the same? Like we want to be better. Yeah. So we have to leapfrog in those areas, because guess what? We want to win. We don't want to be the same. We want to win. Yeah. Okay. So alignment is key. The second thing about what you said is capabilities. The capabilities that people need are broken up into 5 key categories. The first category is something that I call design. And that and design is not something that I need to do. Design thinking, blah, 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 blah. Yes, important. But how do I make sure that I'm designing my processes and my capabilities for the right audience with the voice of the customer, which are my employees, managers, leaders, applicants, alumni in mind? Okay. So the first thing is design. The second thing is data. I need to be able to understand and think that data is sexy. I try to get every single HR leader to chant data is sexy. If I could get a hashtag data is sexy, I would love it, because it's one of the worst. HR's got more data than most functions, yet uses data in the least often. Okay. So we have to be able to understand data and align that data to what it is we're doing. The third thing is I have to think about the fact that what employees want at work is an experience.
Yeah.
They want an experience. We all live in the world of experiences. They want an experience. So how do I think experiential, not transactional? Okay, it's a big difference. How do I think experiential, not transactional? The fourth thing is I have to be really good at telling stories. Okay, I have to be really good at telling stories. And what does that mean? Is it, we do a lot of things in HR transactionally and things like that. But one of the things we don't do in HR is do a good job of actually telling the story of what it means. And we're terrible cheerleaders for ourselves. Terrible. Like HR we're terrible at it. We don't say, hey, we'll say, hey, guess what? We got this module live of a new technology, or hey, guess what? We rolled out this new program. But we don't go back and say the impact of that program and tell the story that we actually made on the business. So, that's a combination. Data's in there too, but telling stories in the voice of who our audience is, managers, leaders. I don't use words like effective data or position management that employees and managers don't understand, nor should they understand. I use the words that they're going to actually say, wow, these HR people, this HR function is proactive, not reactive, and it's moving the ball, down the field. And then the last thing is that we have to think digital.
Yes.
Everyone needs to think digital. And the way that we define digital is a combination of mindset, people, process, and technology. That's the equation. Mindset, people, process, and technology. Technology is only 10% of that whole equation. So when people say, don't say digital, because that means we're rolling out more technology. It doesn't mean that.
Yeah.
It means that I think in a digital manner, which means I think about mindset, I think about audience, I think about journeys, not processes. And I realize that if I think those three things and manage those three things, then technology is just my enabler.
Yeah.
Okay. So those are the five that I would throw out there, Enrique, that to me are, there's no, you can't argue them. Like if they're not there, you need to get them now.
That is fantastic. Let me just, as we wrap up the conversation, let me just go back to the 5 elements that you just mentioned, Jason, in terms of, building the capabilities. We need more design. We need to focus on design, data, being experiential in what we do in HR, telling the story, and thinking digitally, which is about mindset, people, processes, and technology. Fascinating. Okay. Thank you so much, Jason, for joining us in this amazing conversation about the now of work. And what's very interesting about all that you said is that every single thing is possible to start doing right now.
Yep.
And they can represent the most amazing competitive advantage going forward, because like you mentioned before, we're all together in the same starting line right now.
Yep.
Thank you so much for joining us, Jason.
You're welcome. I'm honored and humbled to be here. And I just want to say on behalf of the entire HR community globally, Enrique, you're doing amazing work. So Godspeed to you on that, because you should be so proud of everything you're doing. You're making us all better as a function every single day.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. And, I think it's always a privilege to be able to serve the community in this way by having this amazing conversation. So thank you, Jason, and everybody. Thank you for being connected. I see there are like hundreds of comments in there. I apologize that I was reading some of them and trying to convert them into questions. Jason Averbook, CEO and co-founder of Leapgen, extremely approachable, and you can connect with him via email, via LinkedIn, via Twitter. Join the Slack community. I think your team, Jess, is on the chat. If you can share the link to the Slack community as well, so that other people join. And please stay connected to this interview series that we're putting together, bringing amazing thought leaders like Jason to share their ideas on how to operate not only through the crisis, but also to get ready for all the possibilities going forward. So Jason, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you again, Rick.